Your Honor, she's absolutely massive. Was it bingeable? Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they sprouted tails tomorrow. This guy is just a douchebag. Oh, another thing and another thing. Our audio daddy Jacob Morgan, come to the front. Hey, welcome to our first January wrap-up. I heard you loud and clear, all three of you. So every month, at the end of every month, on the 31st, I'm gonna cover all of the books that I read that month, what I rated them, what format I read them in. Either I listened through audiobook, I read it physically, or I read it on Kindle. I tell you my ratings, what I felt about it, how the month went in general, and then that's gonna be it. We had a lot going on this month, and it kind of felt like January went on forever, literally forever. So we have a lot of books to cover. A lot of the books that I read this month in the very beginning, I don't have any of them here. So you're gonna see them right here, odds are. We had an interesting year in 2025, and moving into 2026, my goal is that I wanted to find more 5 stars and I wanted them more often, which this month overall, we got really close to a lot of 5 stars. And in total, we got 2 5 stars and one that was so close to being a 5, but I decided at the last second to switch it. So pretty good. You don't normally get from me more than a 5 star in a month, if that. Before we get into talking about my first book that I read in January, I want to put a disclaimer that every reading wrap up is going to be spoiler free, so you won't hear any spoilers from me about any of the books that are included in this video. On to our first book. I read City of Gods and Monsters for the first time ever. I'm starting that series, I know. And it's the first book in the House of Devils series by Kaitlynnnreads. And City of Gods and Monsters was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I physically read it, and then the last 25%, I believe I listened to in the car on my way to work and back from work. It took me 4 days to finish, from January 2nd to January 3rd. This monster is 760 pages long. She's huge. Your Honor, she's absolutely massive. But no hate on her because she's gorgeous and stunning. Everybody say thank you, Kaitlynnnreads, for creating such a series. I haven't gotten to the end, clearly. That was almost ridiculous to even say. I have just started it. Have I read the second one yet? No. I'm trying to space it out because that was it was surprising that I got that much of reading done in 4 days. I didn't think I would. But also keep in mind that I hadn't started back at school yet, so I was still on Christmas break. I had some time. If I was to describe this book, it's like the book is filled with crack. It's got like 25% of Wattpad, 25% of like old 2012, like Shadowhunter core, like that time where all of these really awesome dystopian, like fantasy books came out. And it feels like City of Gods and Monsters is a part of that, regardless of when it was released. I'm not entirely sure when it came out. But I loved this, and this was so, so good. And Loren and Darien Castle, I'm not like 110% on board the Darien Castle train yet, because I feel like he's gonna get better. But he's already good, don't get me wrong. For anybody that's about to scream at me, don't get me wrong, he's already good. I feel like Loren is gonna grow so much from where she is, and I'm hoping that she does. If she doesn't, future me is gonna be slightly disappointed. But yeah, Loren was so good. Her character really grew as she got along. I can't talk about it because this is spoiler free, obviously. There was a part that just tore my heart out. Stomp on my heart, might as well. Like, it was just, oof, awful. But then it resolved itself at the end, and God bless Darien Castle, we love him. We're moving on to book 2. Okay, book 2 was A Deal with the Reaper by Madison Lawson. I gave this one 3.75 stars. This is a romance. I would say they claim it as a dark romance. It's not really a dark romance in my mind. It's more contemporary with like a splash of dark, but this is based on a motorcycle club, like a deadly motorcycle club. And she is the serial unaliver of awful men, or they claim that she is. and they don't really show any of it, which is why I struggled with this. But was it bingeable? Yeah. It was bingeable like me with my Annies at 10 p.m. Like, A Deal with the Reaper was good. But was it about a female serial unaliver? In my mind, no. They didn't show they didn't show anything about her doing the unaliving. That kind of fell flat for me, but Jacob Morgan, dude. I'm gonna put a disclaimer here that the only reason that I listened to this book is because of Jacob Morgan. Because I was coming off of reading City of Gods and Monsters and I needed something short. I needed a palate cleanser. I needed something short and sweet. Our audio daddy, Jacob Morgan, come to the front. His voice made this entire thing. Did I read a bit of this? No, I listened to the story. This was audiobook only. So for me, it was presented in a much more palatable format. I think if I hadn't had Jacob Morgan reading it, I don't think the characters would have come off as well as I thought. I feel like a lot of it would have been closer to a 2 for me. This does cover a lot and a lot of backstory. Content warnings that I personally included. This was more of a blink book for me, where you blink and you're done, but they're super bingeable. But the content warnings I put here were abuse, child loss, death, domestic violence, explicit sexual content, grief, misogyny, murder, self-harm, sexual assault, substance abuse, and violence. So that's a lot, but that does kind of come with the territory of a dark romance adjacent kind of book. But yeah, those are the content warnings. And yeah, this was kind of like a nothing in between, like palate cleanser kind of book. It didn't stick with me. And we're moving on. Our next book, I cannot describe to you how utterly pissed off this next book made me. Our third book was The Maddest Obsession by Danielle Laurie. You've heard about this. And The Maddest Obsession was really not great. And the 2 stars that I gave it is solely because of my own conscience, because I felt bad giving it a 1 star. It was bad. It was absolutely incredibly bad. The Maddest Obsession was, in the nicest way possible, not my cup of tea and will never be my cup of tea. I didn't enjoy the kind of like Walmart version of Connor Cobalt that they tried to feed us by saying that he's some mad genius and that he's got an IQ of 1 million, although they don't show it in the narration. They don't show it when we're given his point of view. There's no proof. It's like, at least in Kristen Becca Ritchie's stories, they show through his vocabulary and through his ways of thinking that he is an higher IQ level than most typical normal people. This guy is just a douchebag. Period. Point blank, period. I didn't like the fact that they were romanticizing the blatant insults that the MMC was telling our FMC. Do I even remember her name at this point? No. That's how forgettable she was, and that's how forgettable he was. Actually, no, he wasn't forgettable because I hated him. The female main character really was not great, though. I remember her from the first book, The Sweetest Oblivion, but do I remember all that much about her? No. Oh, another thing. Her substance abuse and how they talk about it, they didn't cover her getting help at all. They just brushed it off, covering the fact that she spent months like drowning in liquor and going to parties and not remembering and choosing to not remember, and then getting to the end of the story with all of the things that happened, no spoilers, and having there be no discussion of the fact that she was addicted. I could not be more disappointed in this story if I tried. And he just blatantly insulted her like all the time. And it was veiled as this like, oh, well, I can't have her, so I'm gonna insult her to drive her away. No. There are many other things that you could do than just insulting her to her face, because you can't stand to be away from her, but you also can't have her, so you're gonna be, what, a bully? I could tell and I could see how some people could interpret this as yearning. That wasn't yearning. That was just frankly quite creepy, stalkerish behavior where he was hanging out in the shadows, insulting her once and then walking away. Not mysterious at all, really cringy and absolutely awful. I gave it 2 stars. It should have been 0. Next up, for such a big book, this is going to be a slightly short review, but I finished around January 10th or 11th, I believe. I finished Some Kind of Perfect by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is their kind of ending epilogue they added afterwards to round out all of our characters and all of the Calloway sisters' stories and be able to witness them as parents and things like that. I don't want to get too in depth because this is spoiler free, but it was good and I enjoyed it, but the awareness that not much was going to happen to the characters because it's one massive epilogue in a, 500? Was it 500 pages? Oh, I was wrong. It's not 500 pages. It's 664 pages of nothing happening. Don't get me wrong. I love the individual characters that they built in this universe. I love Connor Cobalt. I love Rose Cobalt. I loved how Lauren was an older male authority figure that guided Garrison in the books. The only person I really couldn't stand and started to get on my nerves was Reich and his usage of the F word constantly and how the authors just killed his character for me personally. Some people might really love Reich and Daisy, and don't get me wrong, because when I read Hot House Flower, they were my favorite couple out of the 3 too, because I loved them. I don't know what it was about it, but I was so excited to read Daisy's novel. And then they just ruined them. In my mind, they just turned them into these really cringy, we are wolves. I wouldn't be surprised if they sprouted tails tomorrow, you know? It genuinely baffled me how cringe central it got, and every time I thought it would get better, it got worse. But that wasn't necessarily in Some Kind of Perfect because it was more dealing with kids and their process and everything that they went through, and I respect the hell out of everything that they have gone through, and they have gone through hell, don't get me wrong. Daisy and Reich are also awesome. I just hated being in Reich's head. But yeah, that was Some Kind of Perfect. It was a pretty epic conclusion, but the ending, I felt like I did need to read it because I committed to this series and I'm finally done. But did it stand out to me in any way? And was it any kind of heartfelt, tear-evoking thing? No. The best thing that I did like though was the family dynamic, the massive family dynamic, their dinner table conversations and their conversations about all of their sons and all of the intricacies about them was really amazing. Do I think that I'll continue the Like Us series that follows their children? If I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think I will. Just because I've heard that it's not the greatest. That was Some Kind of Perfect. I believe I rated Some Kind of Perfect 3 stars. So it was pretty much perfectly neutral for me. It was really long. It took me forever, but it's okay. That was it. The next book we read in January was The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This was so good. This was a 5-star for me, and I absolutely loved it. This was one of the 2 5-stars that I read in January. It was a very, very, very strong mix of Bridgerton and The Selection, and for anybody that described this as Bridgerton meets The Selection, that is 100% dead accurate because that is exactly what this is. Rose Bargain follows Ivy Benton, that's her last name, and she enters this contest to save her family's reputation. And this is based in London in 1848. And she's trying to save her family's reputation because of her sister, her older sister, and her, and they got themselves into this situation that Ivy could fix if she ended up being chosen as one of these contestants in this competition for Prince Bram's hand in marriage. Prince Bram is the son of the Rose Queen. This queen, she's really messed up. She's a bit psychotic. And you kind of learn that from the get-go, so I don't feel bad about saying that. Our main characters are Ivy Benton, Prince Bram, and then Prince Bram's brother, who's illegitimate. His name is Emmett. He's Prince Emmett. I think he gets claimed at some point, but he's their stepbrothers, I believe. This is a love triangle. This is one of the only love triangles that I have been okay with in a long time. I am not a fan of love triangles, let it be known. But this was so good because I knew that Prince Emmett was going to be the one, and for some reason this time it didn't bother me, because in this Bridgerton and Regency era world, it was a lot more palatable and it was a lot more understandable that on the outside she had to pretend as if she was competing for the hand in marriage for this other man, and then behind the scenes it was more rakish and more scandalous that she was in private falling for Emmett. The connection and the scenes, all of the tiny details and all of the little conversations that they had. The yearning in this book was off the charts and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. The pacing is beautiful. The constant cliffhangers that are throughout this book, the mini cliffhangers as you run into chapters. Each chapter ends on this mini tiny cliffhanger that gets you to read more, which makes it so bingeable. 5 stars. 5 stars. And that is that. On to City of Ashes. We read City of Ashes next by Cassandra Clare. I had read City of Bones back in 2025, and I had started the Shadowhunter series already, but this was the moment where I decided that I was going to continue it, and I was going to commit to starting it. This is a 20 book or something like that, like a 20 book reading order. So I ended up rating this 4.5 stars. It was almost a 5. I loved it. There's just something about a 2000s YA fantasy that gets you in this mood to binge, you know? It killed my reading slump very effectively. I was in a reading slump, very mini reading slump. And I felt this feeling like I didn't know what to do next. And I was staring at these rows of books in Barnes & Noble and I was like, I don't know what I want. And then I walked around back to the YA fantasy and this was staring at me and I was like, yeah, no, we're starting this. And so I looked up Emmy Rossum's reading guide. We're starting it. We're committing to it. And boy, did I love it. City of Ashes, it kind of gets more into the nitty gritty of Clary and Jace, and there's a huge reveal that happens in book 1, and that affects Clary and Jace's relationship a lot. And so they're going through this. For any of you that have read the book, you know what I mean. For any of you that have watched the Shadowhunter series, you also know what I mean. And for any of you that watched the Mortal Instruments movie, the first movie, the only movie, because it got canceled, I will never forgive them for canceling that series. City of Ashes was so good. It was a good, not an intro, because it's not really an intro anymore. You're really getting into the nitty gritty of it. If I was to say one thing about this book, it would be that it was absolutely hilarious. This book had me cackling the entire time. I was laughing all the way to the bank with this one. It was so good. It was hilarious. The amount of quotable moments that Jace and Simon go through, yeah. They end up, I can't say, but they absolutely despise each other in the first book, and that changes, and it's so funny to watch that happen, because Cassandra Clare writes it so well. But yeah, 4.5 stars. Definitely, by far. Okay, the next book I read in January, no spoilers here, I just kept reading the Shadowhunter series, and this is the 3rd book in the Mortal Instruments series. It's City of Glass. City of Glass was agonizing knowing how it ends because I have watched the series for many seasons through. And reading this makes me equally want to read and watch the series over again and not watch it at the same time because of how much more detail was in this. The main takeaway that I got from City of Glass is that Valentine is a fantastic villain. They wrote him so beautifully, and the way that he was multi-dimensional and how he was truly truly uncaring in some sense, but then poured his heart out in another, and how he cared for some of the characters in here in his own way. He wasn't just some kind of kids TV show mwahaha kind of villain. He was understandable in a way that you couldn't tell how he got there or what was going on in his brain, but the moments that happened in City of Glass as you're leading up to the big reveal at the end that you know is coming, it was wild. And running into this other character that comes in, they head to Idris, which is the homeland of all of the shadow hunters and all of the Nephilim. There's a certain character that gets introduced, knowing who he is and knowing how he connects to everything. This one was more agonizing than book 1 or 2 because it feels like the pinnacle. And I don't know what's going to happen in this second 3, so that'll be really fun because I truly won't know what's going to happen then. But I did know what happened here. But what I did enjoy was watching and getting to learn about the inside of Valentine's mind. Genuinely, I know I shouldn't, but I loved Valentine. What can I say? He's bald in my mind. Yeah, so that was a 4.5, loved it. It was a really good end to that series, and I was excited to move on to the 4th book in the lineup, which was the next book that we read in January, The Red Scrolls of Magic. This was the first book in the Eldest Curses series, and it was written by Cassandra Clare, and it was co-written with Wesley Chu as a second author. So The Red Scrolls of Magic is a really unique story because it feels like a novella, even though it's a fully fledged, like 300, maybe more, honestly. Yep, a little bit more than 300-page novel. And it follows, get ready for this, it follows Alec and Magnus. This is the first time that we have been able to read about Alec and Magnus if you're reading in the order that I'm reading in. Magnus Bane, our warlock, our New York warlock, high warlock to be noted. He's on a vacation with Alec Lightwood, and they're going throughout Europe, and it's so visual, and it should be made into some kind of either a mini series or something, because it would be nice to see this visually, because all of the cities that they go to, it was so good. And then they went on the train, the famous train from the Agatha Christie novels. Oh my God, why am I forgetting the name of the train? But anyway, there's a very famous train that they go on. And it was just so good. And they're in Paris and they're in Rome. Did I think it was a little bit cheesy at some points? Yeah, the ending was not any kind of like crazy thing. It felt like a fun little, it was a good time. It was a good time. And that's kind of it. But Alec and Magnus are so good. Magnus's hesitancy at the end, I can't say any kind of spoilers specifically, but Magnus's hesitancy to let Alec all the way in really, like, it pissed me off. Because just trust him. What has Alec done to prove to you that he's worthy? A lot. And has he done anything to deserve the amount of the secret that you're keeping from him? No, Alec doesn't deserve that. He's trusting in you. He's putting his faith in you. And if you saw it through his eyes, you would get the fact that he's going to love you no matter what. But that's, I guess, that's on purpose. I'm supposed to feel that way, and I recognize that, but it was really frustrating having to watch Magnus be he's so wise in his years because of how long he's lived, but he is truly so inexperienced when it comes to truly loving someone and feeling like he is loved back, because he's starting to realize in the Eldest Curses book, in book 1, that he is in love and that Alec actually truly loves him. And he's like, oh shit, that means I actually have to get my ass up and try, because he hasn't felt like that in a long time. Anyway, this was good. And I found myself really getting into the details of their romance, and I loved the visual of it. Was it crazy? No, but it was good. It was a fun time. And I think I rated this a 3.5, a 3.5. It was good. it was a fun time. And yeah, that was it. We only have 2 books left. The 9th and the 10th book that I read in January. The 9th I read was Clockwork Angel. This is the 5th out of 20 in the Shadowhunters Cassandra Clare universe. Clockwork Angel is book 1 of 3 in the Infernal Devices trilogy. It follows this girl named Tessa Gray, Will Herondale, and James, and Will, Tessa, and James, and another Jessamine is another character. I hate her, but we'll include her. Clockwork Angel is the first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. It is the 5th book out of 20 in the lineup and the one that I'm following through with. It follows Tessa Gray, and she's from New York, I believe. She starts out in New York, which is kind of crazy. And this is a long time ago. The time period, they don't really describe it, but they describe it as Victorian England, basically. And they talk a lot about that in the afternotes and all of the bits from the author here. They describe how they tried to be historically accurate, but it wasn't really a main focus for them. But it is somewhere in Victorian England. And Tessa comes from New York to London because her brother sends this letter and says, hey, I'm ready for you to join me in New York. Her aunt dies. And that is something that we talk about in the very first page or something. So not a spoiler, don't worry. But her aunt, whom she very dearly loves, who took her and her brother in, dies. And so she has no caretaker, and she's still, 16, I think, in this book. So Tessa comes to live with her brother, but we learn within the first couple pages that her brother isn't there. And then she ends up being thrust into the downworld. And this kind of very similar world that's in the Mortal Instruments series. I think I gave this a 4. Wow. Actually, I rated it more than I thought. I rated Clockwork Angel a 4.5, and I loved it, but I'm more hesitant and wasn't as obsessed with it as I was obsessed with the Mortal Instruments. It didn't immediately hook me, but also at the same time, I couldn't put it down. So do you know what I mean? I hope you know what I mean. It has a lot of clockwork. It has a lot of, gives very steampunk energy, is what this series starts out as. In my mind, it's steampunk. It's Victorian, but it's also cogs and gears, and not a lot as much of magic and werewolves and vampires. It does include a lot of vampires, actually, but it's not as significant as it is a even mix of the entire world, which is the Mortal Instruments. This gets more specific. And this is the first time that our female main character is not a shadow hunter, at least yet. I haven't read 2 and 3, so maybe. I don't know. I'm getting very close to spoilers here. I don't know if I'm spoiling anything because I haven't read it yet. But for now, Tessa Gray is something, but she's not a shadow hunter. That was weird for me because I was I'm used to being in Clary's head and being used to her pulling up her power and having runes and growing into her power and being a badass fighting woman. But that didn't really happen here. She was different. Tessa was different. And it's fun being in her head. I don't feel as attached to her yet. So we'll see how that grows. I'm sure it'll grow in Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess. But I'm excited to get into that in February. That was number 9. We've come to the end. And Lord, what a way to end it. Because our last book of January that we finished today as I'm filming, we read The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. Did I try to film an entire reading vlog about this book? Yes. Did it fail miserably? Also yes. And this was incredibly good. Was it a 5-star? No, just underneath it. I gave it 4.5. It didn't feel like 4.75 because the vibes of it were fantastic, but they weren't fantastic in the way that spoke to my soul, My head recognizes that this is a very well written and fantastic book, and I loved all of the genius little bits that are included in this book. The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow talks about the love story of Owen Mallory and Sir Una the Everlasting. This is a lady knight, so if you're into lady knights, this is a timeless love story between Owen and Sir Una, and it's noted and it's included in the very beginning, even on the dust jacket, that it's the two of them falling in love with each other over and over and over again, and Owen has to watch Una die over and over again, and it kills him. And they slowly find their way, and they try to find their way to each other, but there's this beautifully created villain that is so insufferable. The villain in this compared to Valentine, I'd take Valentine any day, because talking and listening to the conversations that happened between Owen and our villain, who I'm not gonna name because it gives away the entire point of the book. It's a big spoiler, I can't even say the villain. Conversations between these two, the villain is absolutely insufferable. I loved their story, and I loved how androgynous this love story was, because Sir Una is really strong female main character, and Owen falls for her, and he falls for her soul. He doesn't focus on it all that much, because what he really loves is her bravery, is her personality. There's so many different parts about her that he falls in love with, and it's beautiful to watch. And as much as I'm hyping this up, I gave it a 4.5 just because it wasn't effortless, and it wasn't a soul book. 4.5 stars, it's going on my shelf, and it's going in the same realm. If you are looking to figure out whether you want to read this book or not, the vibes that you get from this book feel purely based on vibes, not plot, not characters. It's falling in the category for me as I would put The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna in, and This Is How You Lose the Time War. Those two feel very similar for me, and The Everlasting is going to fall in that realm and that circle of books. And that's kind of it. 4.5 stars, and that was The Everlasting. Okay, crew, we're done. That was it. I hope you enjoyed. My eyes are like tired now. I feel like my contacts are sticking to my eyeballs. But that was January. That was my January wrap up. And this is the first wrap up that we have ever done together. And I'm very excited for more. February is going to be really freaking short, and it's going to feel like a speed run. Also, I'm turning 25 in February. Woohoo! Valentine's Day. Super exciting. But yeah, February is going to be hopefully really good reading month for me, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. The next book I think I'm going to read and start tonight is Slapshot in the DC Stars series, so keep an eye out for all of my other socials because I update my Fable. If you want to follow me here, please click that subscribe button. If you are still here, thank you for waiting until the end. Please subscribe right down here or down there. I don't know where it's going to show up, probably right over here, right? I think, or at the end card, there's going to be a little bubble that you can click on my name and subscribe. Like this video if you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to follow me on any other social media, my Fable is Katie with a bunch of it's like a tulip and another flower, I believe. On Goodreads, search up Katie Morrissey, Katie Morrissey, Morr, 2 R's. ISS, 2 S's, EY. And that's my Goodreads. You'll see my little face. That's it. That's my Goodreads. What else do we have? Fable, Goodreads. Oh, my TikTok. Oh my God. If you'd like to follow my TikTok, I'm over on TikTok at kaitlynnnreads, same as here. And that is everything. I hope you enjoyed. I would love to hear what your top favorite book from January was. Please leave it down there so I can read all of your answers. I would love to hear your highest rated book from January. I think if I had to choose mine, my highest rating would be the combo of City of Ashes and City of Glass. I loved being a part of that world for that moment, but The Rose Bargain was technically my highest rated, I would say. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you later. Bye. Love you. Here, I learned this last time. Nope, that's not it. It's that. Bye.